I like woke up to a text like, "Hey, like, what are you doing today?" Like, and my girlfriend's been braiding my hair into, I don't have it today, I wish I did, but in these like Willie Nelson braids.
Okay.
And so I had these like braids in my hair, and I show up to set, and like and I had a mustache too, just a must. He hadn't seen me in a while. And I looked a lot different than I did now, but it was like this really like mustache, nothing else on my face, these tight braids, and he's just like, sick. He's like, all right, cool. So we just kind of like went with it.
Where do you find a family of communities connected by the storied Mississippi River, where young explorers and dreamers, investors and entrepreneurs thrive? Where can you connect with real people living and creating in a place that's as genuine as it is quirky? QC. That's where.
Welcome to QC That's Where. I'm Katrina, your host, and today I'm talking to Joel Alexander. Joel, hey, I'm so excited to be chatting with you. I definitely want to dig into how you got your start into modeling and photography all in the Quad Cities, but let's start with a hi, and where are you coming to us from?
Well, hello, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. And I don't know if we're talking about dates, but this is the day before Thanksgiving. So beautiful day here, though. It's currently 62 degrees, and can't ask for a better November day.
Yeah, we have just come out of like a really nasty cold spurt, and so we're in the mid 50s today, and it feels like midsummer now because it was so bad. How long you been in Nashville?
I first moved to Nashville in 2010, but in the beginning of the pandemic, I was living in Los Angeles and had a job here in Nashville. And I was like, I don't want to butcher the date. It was like March 12th or April 12th. It was like the date that COVID started, though. And I was working here in Nashville, and my flight got canceled to go home. Like, I was flying back into LAX, which was all of a sudden like a hot spot you didn't want to go to. So
Yeah.
going back to LA was like, I didn't have anything to go back to because I didn't have any work booked. And I was working mostly at the time in film and TV, and on larger productions where there was a bigger crew. And so bigger crews obviously got shut down because of size. So
Mhm.
everything was kind of stopped. And I was like waiting in Nashville for just seeing how things were going to go. And I stayed with a friend for a few months. I sublet his guest bedroom, and then started renting an Airbnb like that. I offered like a 6-month lease here in Nashville. The guy took it, and him and I became great friends. And he's a photographer. I'm a photographer, so we hit it off. And but just kind of restarted life back here again. I'd always been, since 2010, been coming to Nashville for work, but and had my brother lived here too. He's lived here since 2010 as well.
Fun.
Uh, yeah. So
What work were you doing in, like, what were you working on in LA when COVID hit?
I had just wrapped a feature that's out now, which is I haven't seen it. I like need to, but it's called, what is that? It has the actor Ron Perlman. I don't know if that was kind of their bigger actor. He's in a couple other things. Um the name of it's just slipped my mind, but it was like my first feature film that I had worked on.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was a set dresser, which is like, they have like the movie set and whatever scene or location they're filming, and they'll have different furniture, or if it's a set that's built and dressed is what we call it. It's like maybe we're doing a bar scene, we bring in a bar, set up the whole thing, tables we do, and the lighting department will come in and light it, and then actors come in, see how it looks, or the stand-ins come in, see how it looks on camera, make adjustments, move stuff. And but beyond that, it's a lot of continuity and shots too. So I had
Yeah.
never done that before. And I had just been doing art department, like building sets, mostly just what we call flats, which are just like walls that you use like 1/4 inch plywood or whatever it is. So they're like really light, you frame them, put some sandbags on them, and then you can paint them whatever color you want. And then that can work as a backdrop wherever. And they're easy to transport. So I was building those and making like small sets for a TV network, like a kids like teen TV network in LA. So I got that call for the shoot that I just wrapped right before COVID, and just to like day play is what it's called. You just kind of work for a day on because someone can't make it, or I think somebody got fired. There was some drama that I walked into on that one,
Oh
but
no.
I don't know how this could be a story within itself, but the first day, that night, I knew nobody. There was over 150 people on the crew. We were filming at a ranch in Santa Clarita, I believe it was, and the wildfires broke out. This was back in
Oh,
2019. The wildfires broke out that night when we were filming at the ranch we were on. And so we had to be evacuated. They closed 5 down, so I couldn't go back to LA. I had to go to Ojai and stay with a friend. I was
oh my
also
gosh.
running out of gas even getting to set that day. So I needed to get gas right when I left, and the gas stations were all being closed. It was just this whole thing, which is just a great story. But
Stressful. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I mean, that's, like just another day in the life, really, but it
Sure.
was an experience. Thankfully, we walked away from everything. Like what the tension on that set, we were eating lunch at 1 a.m. because it was a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shoot. And the all the union people like were chirping up about like their safety and how we should be wrapped and evacuated.
Right.
And we had like the local like our set safety person. Like I'm not used to, I've been on big sets, several times, but I've never been like part of, I've been a talent on big sets. I've never been part of like the crew on a set that big. So that everything was interesting to me, but it felt like you could have filmed an episode for a show with these people like fearing for their lives because we have wildfires that are coming towards us and they're not wrapping us or evacuating us. And we only have 15 passenger shuttles. We had like 3 of them with around 150 people. Do the math, and it's a 10-minute route. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to get in a van. You just need to start running if the fire turns. So it was pretty crazy. But thankfully it shifted before it got to our location, and nothing was damaged. But
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
that's what I was doing right before COVID, was
Yeah.
wrapping that. And then wasn't doing much photography. I kind of caught like a weird string of work doing the set design thing, is building and doing props, and which is essentially with a lot of just going to secondhand stores like Goodwill, St. Vincent, different thrift shops, and finding lamps or tables or chairs or like dresser, whatever we needed to like for the scene. We'd paint them and then throw them. Like it was such a fun job. And
A lot of
and
creativity, it sounds like you could use.
it was just a new thing too. Like
Yeah.
something I didn't know much about, and I always loved the opportunity to learn. It paid pretty well. It was like sustainable for me to do it, and it was still like in the like the general thing of what I was wanting to do. And I had just moved back to LA like 6 months before COVID started, with the intent on photographing like more actors and like celebrity, and like shooting key art for TV shows and movies. Like I just thought that'd be like really cool to do. And I did one while I was out there,
Yeah.
which was cool. But photography just kind of took a break because I had something else I was making money on, and it was consistent, and I was getting to work on big sets. And to me, that was like the experience was invaluable. So
You even break into that? Because I feel like working in like the art space or like the film and like media space can be like a dream job for people, and it's just hard to get into.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. Everyone's got their own journey as to how they got into it.
Yeah.
Some will go to school, to film school or to photography school, because they don't have the opportunity to maybe connect locally where they are, because or they just don't know about projects happening.
Yeah.
But I mean, because yeah, I know what that's like of how do you break into it, because I've been where I wanted to work on sets and I would just find somebody with a headset and just be like, hey, and I didn't even know what to ask. I just like wanted to see if like they needed anybody for anything. So I've been in that position. Um, I mean, where everything started in the Quad Cities for me was back in 2000 and we'll say 2007, 2006, 2007. And I got scouted by a modeling agency, SK Models in Rock Island. Miss K and Aaron Byers, photographer. Those two like gave me like the opportunity to like know about the industry, like the
Mhm.
whole like fashion industry, because I knew nothing about it. But before I met them, I was getting my hair cut by a lady named Fran, and she's a just a sweetheart. She had cut hair for a friend of mine, so several friends of mine, and so she was recommended, and I like needed a haircut for something. And while I was there, she said, have you ever thought about modeling? And I was like, no. Like, all I knew from modeling was like the episodes of Dateline or 2020 when I was a kid, and there was like these modeling scams and people would get scouted in the mall, and it was just this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought modeling was a scam. And I'm like, why is this lady like trying to scam me? Just getting
Oh.
my haircut. And she makes a phone call and she's like, I'm with this young man, whatever. And she's like, I'm gonna send him to meet you when he's done. And so I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I'm like, I'm just gonna go. And it was at a place called Ducky's, maybe, right? Is that the name? And
Yeah,
it
it's like a tux, like a
yeah,
dress place. Yeah.
I grew up homeschooled, like didn't go to school or anything, and like didn't, I don't know. I just the whole like fashion, I didn't know. I just knew what I saw kids wearing at church and around my neighborhood. So I didn't, that was like, I was pretty limited on like cultural, like, fashion is like multicultural, it's expression, it's style. I really didn't know anything about it. But anyways, they measured my like my suit size, my inseam and everything. And I just remember getting that tape measure jammed up my crotch and just was like, oh my gosh, like that was a crazy, like a lot of sensation. And like, I'm like, what's going on? I'd never been measured for a tux or anything like that, And so that was pretty weird. So they measured me and I tried a tux on and they were like, yeah, it looks, you look great. And at the time, I should say I had like, I don't know if I had my piercings in, but I had 7 piercings on my face. My ears were gauged, I like, I looked like an emo kid. And so somehow Fran saw potential in me, and the people at Ducky's, they just needed somebody to wear a suit that weekend to walk down an aisle for a bridal show.
Oh,
That's all
okay.
it was. And so I remember it was at the little the hockey stadium that's over there on the river.
Yeah. What you're talking about, it's now Vibrant Arena, but it was
Okay.
probably the tax layer of the IY when you were here.
Shout out to Vibrant. They've been my credit union since I lived in the Quad Cities, and financed my car through them, my old Harley, a couple personal loans over the
Not
years.
sponsored, but yeah, shout out to Vibrant.
Shout out to Vibrant. But yeah, it was there. That's where it was. And I think I made like $75 or something, and it was only a few hours. And I just remember like the job that I had was in construction, and I think I probably made like 10.50 or something an hour.
Mhm.
And if you'd have to work a full day, take a lunch, maybe you go out, you don't even make $80, on a full day of work. So I remember thinking a few hours for $70, $75. I was like, this is amazing. And yeah, we did the show, and we did like the little walkthrough thing, like you do like a little rehearsal. So we went down the runway and did that, and then we hung out for a little bit. The show starts, and so they someone's like kind of dressed, like straightening our first look out. We go down, I do the catwalk, and I come back, and I'm just like that wasn't so bad. I just kind of followed the person in front of me and did what they did, and then because I had no idea, and I get in the locker room and I'm just like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And it's like a frantic scene. There's like clothes flying off. And like, that's kind of the behind the scenes on a fashion show, is like, there's no modesty at all. And it's just, everyone's, pretty much naked. So I'm like, they're just in their underwear basically. And I had never seen other naked people before. So that was like my first experience, was at that fashion show. But, yeah, I mean, that was crazy. But I asked one of the girls that was in the show, like, how did you find out about it? And she said, my agent. And I'm like, your agent? And so that she told me about SK, and she said I should go to an open call. And so I did. And yeah, they said that they love to work with me, and they kind of got me started. But anyways, I don't want to talk too much.
No,
That
please.
I know that's like a lot. But yeah, crazy intro to the fashion world. But yeah, I remember Kay talking about agencies like Ford, Wilhelmina, Next. I just knew that Ford made cars. I didn't know that Ford was a modeling agency. And
Okay.
they would show me pictures of models that were with those agencies, and I was just like, well, it's just crazy. Like, I don't see myself, doing that though. Like, but it was really, really wild. And I later signed with Ford and Wilhelmina and Next and all the agencies that she talked about that day. I later was represented by, so it was really crazy. Um, but yeah.
It's kind of cool that you were like, what did you do around here in the music space?
Well, with music, I started playing drums in church when I was like 14, and just thought that was kind of the instrument that I guess I was the most interested in, and it came the most natural to me. So
Hmm.
never took lessons or anything, just kind of learned how to play just by people kind of showing me things, and whatever. But um yeah, I played at church and like was like maybe like the D-list drummer, for church, and I've never been like the best drummer at like a church or that a band's ever played with or that someone's ever played with. But I've I've gotten better gigs than people that are, were way, way, way better than me. And I learned one thing about that, like your skill level does not, like, if you think that that's what's holding you back from doing it, is like you have to be like really, really, really good,
Hmm.
and but you're not even gonna try. It's like somebody who's putting effort into like, into it, who might not have the skill, but they're available and they want to do it and they're willing to drop all other commitments to do it. Like, that's kind of what it takes in music. If you want to do a band, is you have to drop your other commitments if you're going to like really, really do music.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. So people start phasing out pretty quick, and who can actually do that. I just had nothing going for me at the, I was like, I can put everything into music, and didn't come from money, didn't know what it was like to live a life, like a good life like that, and like financial life. So I didn't know, and you only know what you know. And so
Yeah.
I, yeah, nothing to lose, and started playing music, uh, playing with a friend that I met at a guitar center. The
I
guitar
think that's
center,
so funny. You just happened to meet at the Guitar Center.
yeah, he was just stamping receipts at the door. His name was Cody, and yeah, I asked him if he'd ever want to like get together and play some music, and
Yeah.
he said yeah. And later he told me people would ask him all the time because he was an amazing guitar player, and some folks knew who he was because he was really good, and they would hit him up, and he just wasn't feeling it, but he kind of felt like he should, and yeah, I mean, that was cool. But yeah, like
So
a
were
lot of
you two in a
people.
band together? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, we were in a band called Home for a Hero was our band name.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was me, Cody. The original people were me, Cody, uh, Nate, Schaefer, and Nate. Oh, I'm forgetting the other Nate's last name. I was thinking about this earlier, trying to remember. I haven't talked to him in a long time. Um, but yeah, that's where that was kind of the core. And Mike Reeves. He played keys in it too. He's from
Hmm.
the Quad Cities, and um, yeah, like good group of people. Still some of like the best musicians I've played with, like in terms of creativity and being able to feel music that's like not a rip off of something, like just kind of coming up with their own thing.
Yeah. Original.
Yeah, original. And not to dog in anybody in Nashville, it's an insane city, but there's just a lot of like people trying to do the commercial thing, and they
Hmm.
aren't doing anything original. They're just trying to write generic. And I'm not dogging on anybody. I just see it a lot. It's just like, man, I miss the days when music, like we didn't have as much exposure to like to all this music and everything with Spotify. Like when I was playing music, it was MySpace, and like you really had to like you had to go to shows, the ability to stream music was, like barely a thing. Like you had to put a lot of attention behind it, and now it's just super easy, and we play it all the time. My Spotify is always on, like pretty much all day.
Yeah.
So anyways, kind of sidetracking, but I yeah, started playing music in the Quad Cities, joined my first touring band. Uh I was We were hosting a show for a band from Michigan that they had a tough last part of their tour or something. Some shows dropped. They basically just need to make some money. So we threw them a show in our rehearsal space, which was right on the river, in our we had a really, really great rehearsal spot. That I miss that place a lot. It was like so many memories made down there. But we threw a show for them, got a bunch of people, filled up their gas tank. And one of the guys that was on tour with them, opening for them, guitar player, now photographer, he was just crashing on the couch and we were talking. And I was like, I would love to do what you guys do. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just travel around, like going to playing shows. And, I'm thinking like, even though these people are having like a horrible run, and their shows are getting canceled, like still I'm like, I would love to do this, and
Yeah.
and so he connected me with a band from Minnesota that he knew of that needed a drummer from Minneapolis. And he said, I think they were playing with, I'm trying to remember how this all happened. I know the band invited me to see a show in Chicago. And so I drove to Chicago from Moline. And then they said, if you want to play with us tomorrow in Bay City, you can sit in with us. And so it was just like this little acoustic jam. So I drove from Moline to Chicago thinking I was going to be going back to Moline, from Moline to Chicago to Bay City all of a sudden to play a show. And then like, I didn't necessarily nail it, but they said, why don't you come up to Minneapolis and like have like where you can learn the songs. And so I learned the songs and went up there and I made the band. And that's when I left the Quads, kind of like how I left the Quad Cities, but that kind of got me on the road of playing music and being on the road and touring.
What I'm kind of noticing in like the stories, if we go back to like the original question, how did you break into it? Like it seems like in every opportunity you've been presented with, you showed up and said yes. Those are the two common themes I'm seeing here.
I was thinking about a common theme as well, and the theme that was most present to me was a chance. Like Cody gave me a chance to play music. Kay gave me a chance to be my agent. Take me on. And I think that's like what a lot of people, if you're really passionate about something, no matter what it is, you just have to, you can be self-made and do a lot of things yourself. You don't necessarily need like, everyone's got a different journey, but I would say for me personally, it was people believing in me and giving me a chance. And like you said, showing up. But I mean, I've seen it with friends, people that I've knew at a distance, knew close, rise to great levels in their career, and do really great things. But they did it because they were being pushed and because they were working with somebody that knew somebody, and but they were prepared with the talent and the ability. It might not have been polished, but like hardly ever is anybody ready to go right out of pitchers warm up in the bullpen. Actors go through lines together at a table. I think when you go to work, I don't know, like I try to warm up with whatever I do. Well, it's just sometimes just getting my mind in the right place, but making sure that I'm ready for whatever opportunity, that day brings. So,
it's like you've been saying, everybody's journey is different, and you can give advice and take advice and what should I do here, what should I do there, but when it all comes down to it, everybody's different and there's something different for everyone, and just being open to it. And I see like the Visitors Bureau, Visit Quad Cities here, we really like pride ourselves like as a community in just like helping one another, working harder to create like quality of place, quality of life. And that may not, that doesn't necessarily mean you stay here forever, but what it does mean is when you're here, something good's going to happen. That's kind of where we're at.
I think traveling for me has just been like the best like exposure to like other people's reality, and what would be then my present reality of, because it's where I'm at. And I love traveling back to the Quad Cities and spending time. It's been a few years. I need to come back. It's definitely a place where I would need to do more of a vacation kind of thing, where I used to always travel and be able to work, and I could work, but I just want to go and just hang out with friends and like see. I want to see where Alex and Chris are running. I see their Stravas, of their workouts. I'm like, I want to go for a run with you guys. Like, I want to come back and just spend time, as if I never left.
Yeah.
But
It's hard to do all that in just like a weekend quick trip. You'd have to actually spend,
I know,
yeah, a
yeah, I
handful of days.
gotta have a car to get around to. So it's
Yeah.
but yeah, it's crazy. Like the Quad Cities definitely, um, so much happened there within that year and a half. I lived there for maybe 2 years.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was about a year and a half. I had my first house that I rented on my own at 19. And then it took me like after I left, I don't think I had my own place for like another 6 or 7 years.
Because is that when you were going back and forth from LA?
Yeah, I just was like playing with different bands and like I was living on the road basically. And then when I wasn't on tour, I would just live with or stay with the band or like go back to Michigan, stay with my grandparents, but I didn't live anywhere. Like I left home at 15 and all I had was my drums, my toolbox with tools and my clothes. So I started at 15 years old. And I mean, how I got to the Quad Cities was my mentor and youth pastor, who's the pastor at New Life Church in Moline.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got an offer to be the youth pastor at the church, and I was interning for him at the time and I'm like living with him and his family because I've been kicked out of the house, and so he asked if I wanted to move to the Quad Cities and continue interning and helping, and so that's how I got to the Quad Cities, and I met people through church and through Cody at Guitar Center, and that's kind of how my friend group grew. But yeah, crazy. I mean, a lot started for me in the Quad Cities.
So when you I think the traveling with the music started when you hooked up with that band in Minnesota, correct? And then you kind of went around with them.
Yeah, the Minnesota, the band was great
Yeah.
music. It was produced by this guy Jordan Schmidt, who, if you listen to any country music, he's written songs within the past couple of years that have hit number ones. The dude's crazy mad successful, but back in the day, he was recording indie bands in Minneapolis, and anything that Jordan put his like himself into sounded amazing. He was doing great stuff. So, anyways, a great sounding band, but the guys were just so unmotivated to do anything. They would smoke weed all day, and just they just didn't have their stuff together. So I went there for this opportunity, and we just never played.
Oh.
And so one of the bands that was local, I linked up with just doing merch for them.
Mhm.
And their manager was managing a band out of Indiana who needed a drummer. So I auditioned for that, made it. And then that's what got me on the road actually touring.
Okay.
And that was like in the Christian space. So we were doing Christian festivals and venues and played a lot of small towns in the middle of nowhere. And lived in a van, a 15-passenger van, and it played for different bands, toured with different bands, doing teching and played guitar for a few different people. But yeah, never been like a great drummer, never been a great guitar player, but like somehow had like got to do music full time, and got to, yeah, never been the best looking model or the most talented actor or like the best photographer, but somehow like, I don't know. I mean, there's so much more that goes into it than your skill, like being a good person, I guess, and like being adaptable and just trying to ride it out, is kind of, I guess, what's gotten me here, today. But
You're humble about your accomplishments, but I do know you've made a really successful career specifically with your photography and your modeling. I mean, is that what you're really focusing on these days?
yeah, I think so. I didn't understand with photography that you could be an artist as well. I just like knew of photography because of what I saw in fashion photographs, and my experience with photography was like Olin Mills, like portrait studios as a kid, and then like the model test thing where photographers taking photos of you, and that's just an experience in and of itself. Depending on the photographer, it can be really fun or it can be really weird. So I've had all sorts of things, but
There
I
sounds like there's a story behind this, but
so many stories. I had a client that's exposed me to like the arts, I guess, like more to art. And like I have friends who paint and are, you know, really great artists, but I'd never seen like art. I guess I just kind of knew what I knew, like knew what I'd seen, but I'd never been like a museum or like a big art festival. So I got to go to Art Basel in Miami, and like that kind of um changed my like perception on photography. Like you don't have to just take like pictures of people or like photographs that look like fashion photographs or like, you know, nice portraits of people. Like I'm looking at a photo of my grandpa on my wall, and like I mean it's cool to be able to do that, but it's not, I guess it's not hard. What's hard and challenging for me is like being artistic and creative and conceptualizing an idea and being able to like execute and achieve the idea is, you know, when you're trying to like really illustrate every component of the visual that you have. That to me is like uh what I'm chasing after and trying to, you know, achieve. And it is so much more than just taking a nice photo of somebody. It's like I have ideas and visions and like, you know, different creative uh thoughts, and like being able to actually create those or a version of that to me is like that's what I'm going for in art at the moment. But I'm trying to like approach it from just a more creative, artistic perspective without trying to like imitate a style or like see a style of lighting that I really like from another photographer. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'm like, well, then I don't want to do it. Like, I like you know, not to say I'm going to create something new by any means, but I don't want to be putting work out there that's heavily inspired by other people's stuff. And it's no knocking anyone who does that. I just know that like I have like a greater potential to do something original, even if I haven't haven't yet been able to do it. um I know that, I guess that's, I don't know, somewhere inside of me. So I'm trying to unpack everything in my life that's like could be holding me back creatively, and just trying to, I don't know, open myself up more. So yeah, like I'm still shooting a lot. um but I'm not, I don't know. I haven't been sharing work or like really putting anything out there. Like I'm working on pretty cool projects. There's also I live right by a train track. You can see.
oh yeah, trains coming through, hey.
Yeah, you'll see it here in a second. Also a great time to take a commercial break.
Yeah. Shout out Cookies and Dreams, also not sponsored.
I don't even want to mute it because I want everyone to experience it for what it is every day, several times a day. Here we go.
I can totally relate. Anyone who like works on River Drive downtown Moline, like we do, that's where our destination center is, and we get the train coming through. I mean, it's great. It shows, you know, commerce moving through our area, and no one can complain about that, but it is very loud.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's great. It's like encouraging to see trains moving things. Yes, things are happening. There was one time a train of military tanks, and like I don't know where it was going, but it was like all this like military stuff, and it stopped for like 3 days, parked, like blocking the road to like,
Oh no.
yeah. One time a train was there for 10 days. That was the longest train, blocking the because I live like right by a crossing, so it was blocking the crossing. It's just part of the charm, you know, of living in my building was built in 1899.
Okay.
So it's like right on the railroad tracks. It was an old car factory where they made cars back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they did metal work. And when the cars were done, they would go over a little bridge onto the train track, and it was kind of like a part of an assembly line, I
Yeah.
guess, so to speak. So yeah. So I've been doing photography. I used to retouch a few years ago. I was doing that like because I just got a bunch of work that came in, so I did it, and then that led to other work. So I was like retouching, which is just basically like cleaning up photos, and could be a product, could be a person, it could be a thing, whatever. You're just enhancing the photo and trying to, achieve a result that your client has. So, but it's just like not my favorite thing to do.
Mhm.
I just did a men's grooming campaign that I retouched and I finished yesterday. It's a client that I work with a lot, but I didn't shoot it. I teched on it. I do like the computer on photo shoots sometimes. Next to the photographer, it's like the second highest paid job on set. So it's like if I'm not shooting, I'd much rather be teching, but it's a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility. I basically we're shooting tethered from camera into the computer, and I have a whole rig where I'm able to have all day power on the laptop with I have like a tent for the computer and everything. It's pretty sweet. But that teching has taken me um uh quite a few places this year. I just started making more of a run at it about 6 months ago. I was doing
Okay.
it a little bit when I lived in New York, and then this past since the summer, I've been so stinking busy. Just got back from New York like a week ago. The day I had to shoot Wednesday in New York, and then we wrapped at 6, and then my shoot in Nashville was on Thursday with a 10 a.m. call time, an hour outside of Nashville. So I had to I was on the first flight. I goes up at 4 o'clock, got to the airport hour early. I have pre-check, so I just scoot right through. So I'm
Right.
waiting at the gate, and my flight is Southwest. There's something happens with the door on the plane, they can't lock it, so they had to call another plane from Baltimore. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I needed everything to work today. So I was like 3 hours late for that shoot, but it turned out great, and I feel like I retouched it to, it's kind of like if you don't have your whole team there, and like a part of your team that you needed, it's like you're gonna have an inadequacy in some way. So I kind of had to make up for that inadequacy by retouching it myself. But it
Mhm.
turned out great, and I yeah, I just wrapped that. But I've this year it's been really cool. Went to Israel. I went to Israel 4 years ago. I went to Ukraine back in April, which is really cool. Great experience. Blew both my eardrums out while I was in Poland, and so I was deaf for a month and a half.
How did that happen,
Um,
if
the
I may
best,
ask?
yeah, the best that I can think. It's not what you'd think, but I had a cold the day that I got there. It wasn't COVID. I took COVID tests and everything, make sure I was good. But I was working with all former military, former special forces, doing evacuations for orphans and widows. And I was just taking pictures and doing photo and video. But I wound up driving buses doing evacuations because they were short bus drivers. So I was
Mhm.
driving these huge buses, picking people up, busing them back, and just wasn't sleeping, and my cold got progressively worse. But you think you're in a war zone, and your cold is does not
Yeah.
matter. You know what I mean? You just have to suck it up, suck it in. And that's what I was doing. And that all built up. I think what happened was in my sinuses. We were leaving to fly back to the States, and we were at our safe house, and one of the guys, he's former pararescue, he's like, hey, do you want to go to the gym? And I'm like, where you gonna just get a day pass somewhere? And he's just like, yeah. I'm like, he's like, you want to go? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, absolutely. So I feel like trash. We go to the
Yeah.
gym, and I was just doing, I think this is what did it. I was just doing some bench press, wasn't lifting any heavy weights, but I was laying down and I had all this stuff right here. And I'm
Hmm.
wondering if that's caused pressure on my eardrums, because we had to be up for our flight out. I was up at 3 with a horrible earache. I get to the airport in Rzeszów, Poland, and I had bright green fluid going down my neck, pooling in my collarbone area,
Oh
collecting.
no.
It was streaming down my ears. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
But by the time I got home, my hearing was pretty much gone. And then
Yeah.
the next few days after that, it was completely gone. So
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
it was wild. I could take my Bluetooth speaker, put it all the way up to 10, and my phone up to 10, and I could put it on my ear, and I could barely hear it.
But it slowly came back after
It
all this.
slowly came back.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I had
gosh.
to do eardrops and all this stuff, but it was
Yeah.
a miserable month and a half. And um, I've had to work to get myself back on track for sure, because I just couldn't do anything physical. I couldn't hear, I couldn't work really, because I couldn't communicate. Even when I got to the point where I felt physically okay, I couldn't hear anything. But This is a kind of a funny story. I'll make it short. One of the jobs I did while I was still pretty much deaf, was shooting this not actor, he's a musician named T-Bone Burnett, like producer or whatever. And they just did this like super nice like recording, like super rare technology. It's like super expensive to do, very, 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 very like rare thing to do, and let alone to hear something played through like his like amazing studio. And I couldn't hear anything because I was deaf. And they're playing it, the smiles on people's faces. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, out of all, like, when do you get an experience to do that? And I couldn't hear anything. I just thought it was funny. I would love to listen to it now if I could somehow meet up with him again. But
Like, hey, I know I was there, but I missed everything. Can we?
we communicated through just notes on my phone. I would turn on voice to text and people would talk and I would read it. And
Yeah.
so I could hear what they were saying. So,
Gosh.
oh, what a time that was.
Do you think are you kind of like set for a while, you think? Or are you just open to whatever the wind blows you?
Yeah, I think the next move for me will be back to New York, and I
Okay.
have like a plan to do that. I took a break from modeling when I turned 26, and that's when I got into photography.
Uh-huh.
So, I still have, I've had agencies since 19, and I still do, but I'm like not, um, it's not what I'm doing. It's just like
Yeah.
gigs will come up here and there, and I'll do them. But I haven't like put myself back in that world, and especially in New York, where like you just need to be there and like live there and be available for people to see you, see what you look like, see you in person, see your personality. That's like really important on bigger jobs. And so just being in the city alone is like, that's until you have a name for yourself. And I would be starting over. And not that I had a name for myself, but like there was enough going on when I was in my early mid 20s where like, I had enough that people could send out about me to be interested, so I wouldn't have to, start from the bottom up, which is what I'm going to have to do. But it'll be fun. I'm excited.
But like at this stage in your life, you're coming in with the experience and the skills. Like even if someone hasn't, physically met you before, it doesn't mean that you're not the right person for the job.
I know. I just want to start over with everything. I want to start over with my photography career. I want to start over with everything. And if I can get back to the place of like bright-eyed, knows nothing about it, like that's where I want to be, because
Oh,
that's when
okay.
I'm the most curious and creative. Like I don't, so yeah, it's like having experience, but I also just don't want to let my experience close me off from saying no to something.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I get that.
I kind of just want to be like, like another new person at it and just see how it goes. So,
Yeah.
um, it was just like a part of my income too, that like when I stopped doing it, like all that income went away. And so did, I was doing paid stuff on Instagram, stopped doing that. I didn't think about the money that all of a sudden wouldn't be there. And like, I didn't know what I was going to do. And that's like photography happened, and just kind of that gradient of like change just kind of was sustainable enough for me to continue to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I started photography at 26, so it's been almost, yeah, it's been a while. 8 years.
Are you still modeling at all?
Occasionally I'll yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the last thing. I just did a TV commercial like a month ago, and then I've done a few things. A friend of mine has a clothing brand called, I'm wearing his hat right now. It's called Spiritual World Tour, and he's a really great guitar player. But he started his own clothing line. He had a
Mhm.
model flake or something happen, and so I like woke up to a text like, "Hey, like, what are you doing today?" Like, and my girlfriend's been braiding my hair into, I don't have it today, I wish I did, but in these like Willie Nelson braids.
Okay.
And so I had these like braids in my hair, and I show up to set, and like and I had a mustache too, just a he hadn't seen me in a while. And I looked a lot different than I did now, but it was like this really like mustache, nothing else on my face, these tight braids, and he's just like, sick. He's like, all right, cool. So we just kind of like went with it. And
Just went with it.
yeah, so but I I think like too, just kind of having your thing as a model is like super important. It's because as photographers and casting directors are meeting these different people all the time. It's like they are looking for interesting people, not just like a physical appearance, but like I mean, a person, like it's like an interview. Every time you go for an audition, it's like an interview.
Mhm.
Imagine like having to go to several interviews a day, several days a week, and getting a bunch of no's. Like,
Yeah.
but you have someone sending you to these different opportunities. Like that is what modeling is like, especially when you're starting, and especially when you're not a superstar. If you're just like, because there's what, handful of like crazy successful models and a bunch of successful ones, and a lot of just like, ones like myself that did it. We make
Yeah.
under 100,000 a year, which is still great, but it's like there's people making like millions,
Yeah.
and so, but you're kind of like in those shadows. And I mean, see, I know too much. I know too much about it. I don't want to know anything. I want to start over from beginning and know nothing about anything. Just, I don't know. With photography, with, uh, yeah, I just want to be more creative and create from a place of like originality and like with deep within me, not from like all these external like experiences.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I can see you can, like, anybody can get like set in their ways. This is how we do
Yeah.
things. This is the way it's done. And you can kind of lose. There's a reason why children are so imaginative, because they're new to everything, and the sky is the limit.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like beyond the sky too. Like I always felt like that with Nashville. The sky was the limit, but I wanted like more than the sky. Like, a lot of people get up in an airplane. Hardly anyone gets in a rocket, at least in today's society. So,
More and more.
yeah, I'm dating myself, when I listen to this in 20 years. But there's just so much out there, and I'm 34, and I don't, I'm like, the responsibilities of life are knocking on the door,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know, it's trying to balance everything to still have like the incredible experiences that life has thrown at me and that are out there. Just want to continue to be able to say yes to things and
Yeah.
not,
Well, with your friend who needed you to show up in Willie Nelson braids, and for
yeah,
people who are listening to this podcast, I have to paint the picture. So, um, Joel, you've got very long hair. How long is your hair?
it's to my waist
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
You've got really long hair. You've got a mean beard going on. You've got a nice mustache. So this is what, oh, you're showing. So yeah, Joel's showing the hair right now. Stood up. Yep, you are right. It is down to your waist.
Crazy.
That is crazy long. It's beautiful too. Like if you ever wanted to go full cut someday, you could donate a lot of that.
I need to definitely do that. I've been tempted many times. My thought was to like get my butt back in shape, and then in the spring go to New York, meet with agencies, see what they say, see if anyone likes my long hair, and if they think that they can get me with the right photographers to get some cool pictures to like
Yeah.
send out, like, because it's different. And I am not like I'm not the model that's going to get casted for the guy next door. Like I could be if I had a haircut and cleaned up that way, but I don't look like that right now. I look like your weird neighbor next door, but I like that it's just different, because it's like the opportunities that you and the jobs that you get will be different.
There's an intrigue there. When someone does go out on a limb with their appearance, grow the hair out longer than most people would, or what have you. Like, in I saw this article in 2014 that GQ did with you about your morning routine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah, that's back when the beard thing was having a moment. Like beards were having a moment back in 2013, 2014. I somehow got how did that start? A friend named Luke Detella had some like traction on Instagram for his beard, and he was having a moment, and a lot of people were following him, and so he somehow, like, I think I would post photos from modeling jobs or from shoots or whatever. And I got kind of like tossed into that like a little bit. I would kind of pop up on these like fan page or like beard pages on Instagram. And so we linked up, and then he like shared a photo of me. And then all of a sudden he looked at me and he was just like, what did he say? Gosh, I wish I could remember. My phone shut off though. It was like back in the early iPhone days, and I had all the notifications on my
Oh,
phone, just like it literally powered down my phone from all the notifications from people following me. And like I that some of the other kind of core people that were in that like little little beard niche were very nice to me and took me in, and they shared, you know, my photos, and that kind of grew my page, and which led to, you know, ultimately like the different articles and publication. You know, everyone needs someone to write about, right? So I don't get too excited about it, but I feel like you know, I was just another story on GQ, but it was cool to like make a little appearance. And yeah, it was just on my morning routine about my beard and my hair when I had short hair. So I talked about the products I used, and as a model, you know, it's just kind of, I guess they kind of wanted to know, you know, how do you, which is just where models are just like everybody else. You know, I would show up to set though, and they would say, hey, before the job, we want you to do your hair on set or show up camera ready. And they would have a hairstylist, you know, for the job there, and they would just say, hey, the client wants you to do your own hair, so if you need anything, here you go. And I'm like, I brought everything, and I would just do my hair, and however I did it. And both, I've been in GQ a few times, and every time I've styled my own hair for those shoots, and there's been hairstylists on set, which is so funny. Yeah, because they're way better than me. They just like the way I did my hair when they first met me. So what a weird world, you know, like when you really think about modeling and like what it's, and everyone's got their own journey with that too, and their own story, and like, you know, I got mine, but crazy, crazy.
Your Instagram. I found your Instagram. The one, is that how it got so many? You got like 52,000 followers?
Yeah, back in the day, I was like close to 100, and I
Yeah.
was just posting photos of myself, you know, and like of like my life. Then I started, when I was like, I'm done modeling, I'm done doing this Instagram thing. And I when I started doing photography, started posting pictures from my shoots, and they weren't bad, but it wasn't me. And you follow somebody on any platform because what the content that they share is interesting to you. So when someone starts sharing things that aren't interesting, you know, it's just kind of the unfollow buttons right there. And now it's even easier than it used to be to unfollow somebody. So when I started posting photos of my photography, I lost a lot of followers. Oh, and then I had shaved. That was another thing. I shaved my beard off for whatever reason. And then this guy I knew was a writer at a pretty big publication, and he said, hey, I want to do a story about you shaving. And I was like, okay. And I didn't think much about it, and it wound up being a viral article, and I got like a lot of hate on it for shaving. Like, so all these people that followed me for my beard like unfollowed me because of that, and then my photography. So it's like, yeah, I still have, you know, 50, but it's like in today's, that's not that many, you know. I still feel like it, but I took all my work down just out of like what I was saying before, just wanting to start over.
Yeah.
And kind of like you know, you only know what you know, and if there's still a lot of people out there that don't know my work at all, so it's like if I can present just whatever's inside of me now, not the old stuff from before COVID and like whatever I did during COVID, like I'm I'm a different person then, and I just don't like having those like ties to like, not that it was bad, but like I don't want to shoot stuff like that anymore. I want to go a completely different way, and I don't want someone to expect, you know, when you hire a photographer for something, like you're expecting, you have your vision and what you need. You're expecting them to be able to do that, but also like their work will influence, you know, your wanting to work with them over somebody else. And I just, you know, want to show something different than what I've done in the past.
Yeah.
So
Just kind of like a reinvention phase.
I just want to find like my thing, like with the camera. Cameras are so cool, and there's so many different kinds of cameras and ways to take a picture too. So like that, the choice to, you know, to pick up a certain camera over the other, to shoot a certain film over another, or at a time of day, like though I'm thinking about a lot more than I used to, because I'm realized like it's all things that and elements that will make up a shot. You know, it's kind of just being more intentional, I think. And that was like when I first started shooting, I wasn't intentional at all because I didn't know what to be intentional about. I just kind of photographed, and compositionally it was good, but there was a lot of missing elements that fundamentally I just didn't know that would have made the shot quote unquote better.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to that, like how I don't know how I used to shoot and think about things with, you know, what I've learned about lighting and everything else. I'm probably overthinking it. It's like probably the thing I overthink the most in life is photography, but it's like, to me it is an interesting thing to do. But I've been consulting too, which has been really nice. Kind
Oh,
of
how so?
consulting on just different areas and topics in life that I have somewhat of an expertise on. So it's been a
Okay.
lot of photography things like related around photography software. Um, and they have assigned like all the stuff, so we can't like talk about like too much, but I
Sure.
can say that it's a lot of questions, based on like practical uses for certain tools in photography within the editing space most of the time. But I started doing that. I've been doing it about 2 years, and there's
Okay.
a company in New York that I work with, and they just pair me up with different clients that need to speak with somebody that has an expertise in that area. And I don't know, it's like that's a new thing for me too. And I don't know what I can like or what I should be charging. And I get like very muted answers when I ask because they're like,
Mm.
that's your personal, you're like, that's up to you. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, so I just keep, like raising my rate. And I don't know if I'm like, I don't know if I could be making more, if I'm not making enough. Like, I have no idea.
That's tough because that's such a niche, like, piece of the industry to be into. You probably don't have much to compare it to.
I've heard of people making like five figures, consulting, but I don't know
Uh-huh.
like within their consulting if they're building out like a whole plan or if it's like how that those sums are kind of spread out. Like are they under a contract for 3 months for that number?
Yeah,
I don't know. A lot of my things are just one-off, like hour-long calls.
right.
So but it's been really cool. And it's like just kind of I just they'll hit me up randomly. I'll get an email saying, that you've been selected for whatever. I'm like, all right. I thought it was a scam too when I first heard about it. I was like looking for work in New York and kind of like odd jobs. And when I was living there years ago and like applied and I just because I was kind of desperate and needed to make money.
Mhm.
And it took a little while to get integrated and but yeah, they pay in like 10 days and it's really cool. But uh yeah, I mean, it all kind of like, I think being a creative, just having multiple streams of income, and like different ways to keep yourself sustainable as
Mhm.
you in anything. If you're trying to pursue a life where like you're working for yourself and you're making money,
Like
um,
freelance ways. Yeah.
you're a freelancer. Yeah, it's just I think having like multiple ways to make money is good, and passive income is great if you can get any kind of passive income.
Yeah.
But I don't really have any passive income right now. So, um, but
So how do you market yourself to get work?
well, with everything I've done with photography is word of mouth.
Mhm.
And I would even say, like it's all referral. All the tech stuff I do is definitely referral because I have no website or nothing out there that says I do it. It's just getting my name, mentioned and someone calling me and, just telling me about the job and trusting, the referral.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's basically everything I mean, I have my website still up. Um, I've worked a lot this year and shot some pretty cool stuff, worked on some pretty great projects, and I haven't been sharing anything on social media on my actual page for 2 years. And I don't want to like, I don't want to say that's not important to I don't know. I think maybe I could be working more, but it's like I've just proven to myself that I don't need I mean, I at least have a page and I have a little bit of clout, but like there's nothing on there. I have a website, and I feel like that's just I want to take that down too. But I had someone tell me on a job, oh, I love your website, and they're pulling references for a shoot
Yeah.
of mine, and I'm like, I do need at least that. So yeah, working on I've been shooting a lot though of new stuff that I just haven't been sharing some stuff that I'm like happy with and other things that I'm kind of like it's taking me somewhere. And I'm like taking elements from a shoot and being like, all right, I'm gonna put it on this and like improve in this area and tighten this up to ultimately like really go for it on a production, pay for everything myself to make it the way I want it, shoot my own stories, put them on my website, and then I have something that I created myself, that I directed myself. Um, that's more me than external, like collab. I'm
Mhm.
like the creative director, art director, and photographer. Um, and yeah, and or if I, it's just Nashville's been a tough place to find collaborators that are like kind of along the same have the same vision, or it can achieve an aesthetic. So I like to be spending more time in New York next year. That's a big goal.
So do this for me, like put yourself November 23rd, 2023. What have you accomplished, or like what have you done that you are striving for in the next year?
Yeah, I think, gosh, the next year, I would love for things to continue, and the balance to continue that I have. Like, I want to keep doing everything I'm doing, and just, I don't know, let myself be surprised.
Cool.
Um, I don't I don't know. I got a pretty great spot in Nashville. It's like it's one of the most unique apartments um that I've seen. And I live, I can walk to downtown. I can, like, it's really crazy. And it's
Yeah.
affordable because I got in during COVID. So and I got, the best neighbors, great landlords, and it's like I don't really want to leave. But there's the other side of me that is like, if you really, really want to, musicians move to Nashville for music, actors move to Los Angeles for their acting careers. You might move somewhere to go to college somewhere. You move place, and I've done it so many times. I'm like, don't forget, you got to move somewhere if like you really want to like take that big next step in your career. For me personally, so that's moving back to New York. And I don't know. I am, even though I have a good deal, I'm paying what I would pay to live in a bedroom in New York, not have my own place.
Yeah.
But I when it makes sense to move back out there, I will. It's
Yeah.
like, I just flew out for a job though, last week, and I had to fly the next morning out, be up super early for one here. Like sometimes it's like that, and I'm down to, I love it, honestly. I got a little camping sleeping pad, and in a year from now, that's still going to be traveling with me. It's, I'm still going to be sleeping on floors, places, if that's what I got. Like, when I went to Miami for Art Basel, I went down there thinking I was sleeping on a hotel room floor, didn't know what the hotel was. Just a friend said, "Hey, if you want to come, if you can take some pictures from my brand while we're in Miami, you could stay at my hotel." And
Mhm.
he's like, a couch or whatever you want. I'm like, all right, cool. So I get a flight, not making any money to go down. I'm just like, I got a place to stay. And I go down to Art Basel. I made like 3,500 bucks while I was down there, and just work that popped up. And then got a client, like some dinner party that I was shooting for Hennessy. And it was like all these like rich people, and they were selling these like super, super rare bottles of Hennessy, and Maurice Hennessy was there signing. And like, but I made, well, like 1,200 a party, and then shot some other stuff. So I might have made more than 3,500 on that trip, but I went down there thinking I was making zero. I was sleeping on a
Yeah.
floor. Wound up staying in the Fontainebleau Hotel, which is a crazy nice hotel. And
It
10 years
sounds nice.
10 years prior to that, about maybe 10 years, I had maybe 8, was at that hotel because I was playing music in the Keys, playing different tiki bars, and we had a day off. So someone let me borrow their car to go to Miami, and they said, "Go to this hotel, and you got to see this hotel." I'm like, all I knew was Holiday Inns, Best Westerns. I didn't know anything about nice hotels. It was crazy, crazy nice. And I met Adam Sandler while I was there walking around. They have all these like little pools and stuff, and I hear, "Hey, you look like my wife's brother." And I turn around and I'm like, "You look like Adam Sandler." And he's like, "You gotta come meet my wife." He's like, "He looks just like your brother." And he was in basketball shorts. Like he was the same person in person that he was like that you see on movies. It was the most bizarre thing. But when I went down to Miami, I've also stayed in like pretty dumpy Airbnbs that were 70 bucks a night, Art Deco, where you can see a light all around the doorway. I like every experience that I've ever had in Miami. Like, it's always been fun. But this hotel was the Fontainebleau Hotel, and it wasn't just sleeping on a couch. His client had an extra room that they put me in, ocean facing, like 18th floor. I went down there thinking I was sleeping on a floor, just like I just went to New York and slept on my friend's floor and worked a job. Like, I like my hustle and my like all these like little decisions that no one knows about definitely like take me places that most people wouldn't even think about going, because where are they going to stay? How are they
Right.
going to, like, get yourself a sleeping pad from REI that you can travel with, and as someone's got an extra blanket or pillow, and do what you
Just
got to
go
do.
for it.
Go for it. What do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna have an experience of anything else, and if you can wake up tomorrow and have a new day, that's like a new day for new opportunity. And yeah, I love it. So the REI sleeping pad, shout out to that. Shout out to REI, your return policy. We love it.
What is their return policy?
It's a year long. You can return anything to REI for a year for a full
Man,
refund.
nice.
Yeah, if you don't
Not
like
bad.
I don't abuse it by any means, but it's like,
No.
if something's
Funny.
not working, you can always swap it out. So
That is excellent customer service.
it is. Oh yeah.
Thinking back, like from when you're, even like before your career, just like when you, started making friends, I guess, like in high school, when you were kind of getting into the music scene, that kind of like, do you have like a favorite or a standout moment from start to where we are today?
Wow. Man. So many just like funny visuals pop up, just like, I mean, and Chris, your husband would tell you too, like, I've played music with people that I've met at a gas station one time in like rural Tennessee.
Oh, no kidding.
You look like a musician. It's just like, you play music, and I'm like, yeah, I play drums. Just like, oh yeah, I'll come over to the garage. You're just getting gas somewhere, and you go just play music with a couple good old boys, and they freaking rip. Like stories like that. We used to play music with the first group of guys I ever jammed with. One of the guys, I don't know the condition that he had, but when he would play bass, he would start to foam at the mouth, and he would get super excited. And the dude like was mad good. He listened to like Dream Theater and could play like he listened to Rush. Like the technical ability that this bass player had was insane, and his mouth would just foam, and I'd be like playing drums, just like watching. I was just like, this is crazy. That's like a crazy story. I like this. He's like, I don't know. That was kind of a weird one to tell, I guess, unless you were there. But those were the first group of guys that I ever played music with. Martin, Phil, and Phil's dad had this like really cool '60s SG guitar, like super nice. But yeah, some guy I met up in Gaylord, and he was the first one to ever ask me if I wanted to jam. And I don't even remember how I knew the guy. He played guitar. He was in a Dream Theater also, and he was like really good. I could never play the music that he wanted me to play. He would like, you just kind of play this part. I could never play it, but he would still he'd pick me up to come play music with him. Like those people, the Phil, the Martin, like those in the very, very, very beginning, I don't know if I would have started if it wouldn't have been for like those. And I haven't talked to those guys in forever.
Yeah.
But like people that gave me the chance or the opportunity, and I got to have an experience that maybe encouraged me to want to have another experience, and keep doing something, because I didn't know any of this stuff existed, so shout out to everybody, who's ever, thank you for having me on your podcast. I just think it's really cool. So
Well, on that note, we got the Quad Cities brand promise behind me. I'm going to have you fill in our campaign slogan. So it's QC, that's where. Fill in the blank.
That's where it all started for me.
I love it. Thanks so much, Joel. Is there anything else that just stands out to you, or anything you'd like to share with people who are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, there's so many great people in the Quad Cities, and like it's like one of the nicest places people wise, that I've lived at. So yeah, great place. I do need to make a visit and just take a walk down memory lane. See the old arena, see what it looks like now. Where I did my first full show. It's like it was some of the first building blocks for me were laid down there. So always has a special place in my heart. And I don't know if your viewers caught it at all, but my John Deere jacket, which I told you the story before we started the podcast, but love this jacket. It's one of my favorite ones. But I ripped it. I fell up my stairs today.
Yeah, Joel's wearing a like a bright yellow John Deere jacket from, you said it was from the 60s.
Yeah, it's like vintage 60s.
Yeah, it's super cool. I'm super glad that you got that. It's awesome to find old John Deere merch. Like the
It's
John
so
Deere
sick.
Pavilion they started this new, they did like a revamp, and they've got this display that has all these hats from different like phases of the John Deere story. And they all have their own, somebody donated it and it's got its own
Yeah.
kind of like history. It's really, really cool. So it's cool you got that too.
Yeah, I love because it reminds me of the Quad Cities. That's why I got it. Like John Deere living in Nashville, it's like, kind of becomes a cliche for country music and tractors and,
Sure.
but for me, John Deere is like, that's the Quad Cities.
So Joel, how can people find you professionally if they want to follow you on Instagram when you create your new, your new stuff?
Yeah, I know. Whenever that comes out, I do post memes though, and I post on my stories. That's where it's at, anyways. But haha Joel is my Instagram, and my website is my name, joelalexander.co, just co.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Joel. We will keep in touch, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to hopefully being able to come to the Quad Cities very soon.
Thanks for listening to QC, That's Where, a podcast powered by Visit Quad Cities. Text Visit QC to 38314 for insider events, activities, and updates sent straight to your phone. That's VISITQC, one word, to 38314. Message and data rates may apply.